Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel ManojWeb. My name is Manoj Kumar and my goal is to help make your HTML and CSS life easier. In today's video we're going to be having a look at the animation property. So as you can see I have a basic layout with like 5 boxes. One is each of them have some text inside it, which is what we're going to be making it do. We're going to have this become tall, this become wide, this blink, and this is going to spin. This is going to do all the above, and I'm going to show you how to do it step by step. So the animation property is somewhat like the transition property, which we talked about in another video, but uh, it can allow you to do it infinitely or like however many times you want instead of having to wait for some kind of trigger. So let me show you what I mean. So let's target this first box, which is box tall, which is the class I have on it. So if I target box tall, let's say I give it an animation of become tall, and I'll explain to you what I'm writing right now, what each of it means. But let me write it down first, and then I'll tell you what it means. So right now I set down animation. This become tall is the name of the animation. This linear is like what way I want it to go. Well, actually, this linear needs to go after the time, I think. So I have the name, the duration of like how long I want the animation to run, and like how do I want it to run. Basically, do I want it to go the same speed the whole way? Do I want it to start early, like ease in, ease out? That's what we talked about with the transition property as well. And now, how do you declare an animation? So the way you declare an animation is you write this at symbol and then write keyframes and the name of the animation. So we have become tall. Then we just do what's it called? Angled. Yeah, let's say angled bars. And then we just write what we want. So we write from like which state it should start at. So let's say the height of um, 200 pixels. I think that's the current height. Yes. And then I can see to the height of 500 pixels. So it's gonna go from the height of 200 pixels to 500 pixels. As you could see, it just ran, but I had something come up. Let me save it. Hopefully it'll, yes. As you can see, it becomes 500 pixels and then it goes back. Let me actually change it to 400 pixels so it stays within the screen. Um, so this is basically telling you to go from the height of 200 pixels to 400 pixels, and we can make it go for infinitely or like as many times as you want if you write the infinite keyword right here. So if I write infinite, it's going to go on for infinitely. So it's going to continuously do it. So now let's talk about the animation. So this animation is the shorthand for a lot of animation properties like animation name. You can write the name of the animation, etc. This is just a shorthand. This is like the what's it called? This is the format of the animation property. Let me write it in there. So like what the things we need to write are. We're going to talk about the name. We already talked about the name, which is become tall. Then duration, which is 2000 milliseconds. The timing function, which is like linear, like how fast we want it to go throughout each state, linear. Delay we can add after the linear, which is like how long we want to delay before doing it. So let's say I want to delay like 5 seconds. So it's going to do that. It's going to wait 5 seconds and then it's going to do it. Let me actually change that to 1 second just so it's easier to check out. So 1 second, it's going to do it, and well, it's going to delay for 1 second before doing it. It's not going to be before every one. It's going to be before doing it. So if I put 10 seconds here, it's going to wait 10 seconds before doing the animation. And then we have the iteration count, which comes right after delay, which tells it how many times to run. I put infinite for it, which means it runs for an infinite amount of time, but you can put some specific number like 2. Let me change this to 1 again. So I wanted to run twice this time basically. So it goes the first time, and then it goes the second time, and then it stops. That's the iteration count. And then the direction, which is like, do we want it to continuously go down and like start back at 200 pixels, or do we want it to go from 400 pixels to 200 pixels, or do we want it to like keep changing between it? So let me show you what I mean. It can either be normal, which is like how it's been, which is the default property. It could be backwards, or I mean not backwards, reverse, which means it should start from 400 pixels and go to 200 pixels. Starts from 400, goes to 200. And it could be alternate, which means it goes from 200 to 400 and then 400 to 200, and it continuously changes between it. That makes it look more smoother as well. Why is this? Let me get rid of the delay as well, just so we don't have to wait every time, and let's make it infinite, which is the iteration count. Now alternate, that's a direction. Now fill mode. So that's basically like, do we want it to stay at that state after it ends, or do we want it to like go back to normal state? You can do forwards or back forwards if you wanted to stay at that, and the default is like not forwards or normal, which means it's gonna go back to its original one. So if I change this to like one, just one, so it's gonna do that. If I do forward, it's gonna stay like that instead of like going back to its normal size. That's the fill mode. And then the play state, which is basically like, should it be running right now or should we paused, which is like what its state is basically. And those are all the things. So right now it's running, and if we do like, let's say box dot hover, what am I doing? Pseudo classes. Add a pseudo class of hover. So when we hover over it, we want it to animation play state. Oh, play state. Why is this not typing? To be paused. So if we hover over it, that should pause it, and if we don't hover over it, it should run again. So I'm hovering over it. Well, it's only running one time. Let me make it infinite again. So it runs for an infinite amount of time. If I hover over it, it's paused. If I don't hover over it, it's not paused. And that's the tall one. Now let's work on the wide one. It's basically the same thing. I can just copy this keyframes. Well, actually, I can just copy all of it, all the styles. I can just change this to wide, this to wide, and it's doing the same thing because I still need to change this to become wide, width, what? Oh yeah, I still need to change the animation to become wide. Now instead of becoming tall, it's going to become wide, and if I hover over it, it pauses. And now for the blinking one, we can just change the opacity of it. So if I go here, so it's the same thing, just with instead of box tall, it's going to be box blink, I think. Yes, it's box blink. It's going to blink. Let's change that to the name. Blink and box blink. So you want its opacity to go from 0 to opacity of a 1 instead of changing the height. And this is probably too slow. Let's make it like 500 milliseconds instead. And that's it. Now it's blinking. If I pause over it, it just stops in that state. Now for the spinning, we can do the same thing, but instead of that, we can just like change the transform. So let's change the name to spin. Let's get rid of this and change it to transform, rotate X. Let's say like 100 and let's start with 0 degrees to 360 degrees. Transform, rotate X to 360 degrees. That's 260, not 360. So let's change this to box spin, and it should not become tall, it's to spin. If I put box spin, now if I hover on this, as you can see, it's currently spinning in that way. Let me try changing this to Y. It's going to change on the Y axis. As you can see, it's spinning now. If I hover over it, it pauses within the spin. Now for all the above, it's just going to be a bit different because I'm going to do them step by step instead of like all the things happening at the same time. I'm going to have them happen step by step. And this is going to introduce a new way of doing animations. So let me do box all, get all to happen, and box all, paused, all. So let's get rid of this from to. So there's another way you can write like animation, which means you can write 0%, which means 0% through the animation. So when it's 0% done, this is what you want to happen. So you want to set the width to 200 pixels because let's say the height actually to 200 pixels, height 200 pixels. And when it's 10% done, let's say, yeah, let's do 10%. When it's 10% done, we want the height to change to 400 pixels. When it's 20% done, we want the width to change to 400 pixels and height to be back to 0. Not 0, 200 pixels. And then when it's 40% done, let's say, we want it to blink. Let's say the width is back to 200 pixels. And we want the opacity to be 0. Let's do 60%. At 60% of the way, it's going to become opacity of 1. And for spinning, we can do transform. It may look really weird right now, but don't worry. Rotate Y 0 degrees. And let's do like 100%. I'm going to change the percentages because these are just rough ideas. So transform, rotate Y to 360 degrees. So those are rough ideas. As you can see, it's somewhat doing it. Let's change this to 20%, this to 40%, this to 60, this to 80, and that to 100. So it's changing the width. So right here, let's have the width be 200 pixels. So it changes the height first. The height, width, opacity, and then spin. And since it's alternating, it's changing again and again in the opposite direction as well. If we make this like 500 milliseconds, it's gonna happen super fast. It's probably gonna look weird. Let's do like 400 milliseconds. That looks super weird. I mean 4,000 milliseconds, not 400. And if I were to pause, hover over it, it's gonna pause. And any of the animations, and that's how you create any of these animations and how the animation one works. You just write keyframes, you write the name of the animation and what you want to happen within the animation. You can do from to or like these percentages as well. Alright, that's it for today's video and hope you enjoyed. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and like button and comment down below any suggestions you have for future videos. And come back on next Friday to learn something new.